Hello and welcome to the Lore of the Cards podcast, a podcast that uses Hearthstone as a vehicle to unpack the dense and sometimes complex lore of the Warcraft universe. This episode is something a bit different from our usually scheduled programming. It's the first of several specials which will be interwoven into our standard episodes. Since the current Hearthstone expansion is Descent of Dragons and the first part of this story closely ties into one of the set's key legendary characters, I figured now was a great time to begin the slow release. Welcome to the Dragon Saga. This mini-series will reveal the stories behind 6 major lore characters in the Warcraft universe. The Dragon Aspects: Alexstrasza, Ysera, Nosdormu, Malygos, Kalecgos and Neltharion, or as you probably know him, Deathwing. Due to this series' scope, I'm nowhere near finished with it, and am currently, of time of this recording, 80 pages deep into my writing and research. So while this series will eventually be done, there may be large pauses in release when I come to a natural stopping point. Basically, I'll need time to write more in order to keep releasing episodes in this saga. So, here we go. Chapter 1. The Beginning. The Aspects paths cross with many major Warcraft lore characters, and one of the earliest of those is Galakrond. But let's not jump ahead too quickly. The Dragon Aspects are closely tied with a lot of events in the Warcraft universe, including the Titans, who were born when the universe was young. Therefore, it does make sense to cover them briefly as well, to give anyone new to Warcraft lore some context as we journey on through the tale of the Aspects. I will begin the Dragon Saga with the birth of the universe itself. In the beginning, before the cosmos had form, 2 forces existed: the light and the void. The light was a boundless sea of living energy, its movement conjuring a symphony of joy and hope. But as light expanded, pockets of the energy thinned and faded. In these pockets of what would become cold nothingness, the void would form. It was diametrically opposed to the light. The vampiric void was driven to devour energy, twisting creation upon itself to feed. It did not take long for the void to grow and tension form between these 2 opposite yet inseparable forces. This tension would birth a series of catastrophic explosions, which would in turn give form to the physical universe. It was not just the physical realm of the great dark beyond that was created through the clash between light and void, but so too was the twisting nether. At the edge of this astral dimension, light and void collided, bleeding together, creating a realm of chaos. Occasionally, the turmoil of the twisting nether would seep into the great dark beyond, warping creation. It was in that realm of chaos that demons would eventually come into being. While the ancestors of dragons were among the first creatures to be given life, they were not the earliest of all creatures. The explosions that birthed the universe also flung shards of light throughout reality. As light settled on the myriad of worlds created, it infused the matter upon these worlds with the spark of life. The primordial elemental spirits were formed, beings of earth, air, water and fire, native to nearly every world. Occasionally, clouds of fractured light would form to give birth to more complex life than the elemental spirits. Among these were the Naru, who from their conception vowed to use their mastery of the light to spread hope and nurture life. The most fascinating and wondrous life forms, however, were forming within the nascent worlds. Rarely, a world soul would come into being within a planet's core. For many ages, these souls slept, their energies suffusing into the planets they slumbered within. When a world soul awoke, the planet itself would transform into a wondrous titan. The first of these beings to awaken was the great Aman'thul. Though alone, the Titan knew that others of his kind must exist. so he resolved to wander the great dark beyond in search of fellows. Eventually, his long, arduous journey bore fruit, and he found other worlds with sleeping souls. Aman'thul would nurture those souls to rouse them from their slumbers, and when they awoke, they would go in search of more titans. Aman'thul and his fellow titans became known as the Pantheon, benevolent beings that sought to bring order and stability. These titans were Aman'thul, High Father of the Pantheon; Sargeras, Defender of the Pantheon; Agramar, Lieutenant of the Great Sargeras; Aeonar, the Lifebinder; Khazgaroth, Shaper and Forger of Worlds; Norganon, Keeper of Celestial Magics and Lore; and Golganeth, Lord of the Skies and Roaring Oceans. The Titans would use their near unfathomable power to preserve, protect and nurture all worlds of the Great Dark Beyond, even worlds which were not in possession of a world soul. To do this, the Titans empowered primitive lifeforms to uphold order. The Pantheon also embedded colossal machines upon a world's surface that would cleanse the planet of life if they found that disorder had taken root and spun out of control. The Titans called upon the aid of celestial beings known as the Constellar to operate these machines' failsafe procedures, eradicating disorder and beginning life anew. Creatures had been watching the Pantheon as the Titans journeyed through the Great Dark Beyond. These creatures had existed within the Void since the cosmos came into being. The Void Lords were envious of the Pantheon's power. They desired to corrupt one of the walking worlds, which would become an instrument of their insidious desires. This corruption proved an impossible task for the Lords, and they struggled to manifest in the physical universe. When they did, their energies would seep into the realm, warping the life forms that came into contact with them. Whether due to their energy rapidly seeping from them, or to their powers just not comparing to that of the Titans in the physical realm, the Void Lords were unable to achieve their goal. Undeterred, the Void Lords formulated another plan to try and bend a noble Titan to their will. They would corrupt one at its earliest stage, while still a slumbering world soul. However, the Void Lords did not know which planets had world souls, so their search had to extend all over the Great Dark Beyond. They pooled their power, creating numerous creatures of nightmare which would come to be known as the Old Gods. An unknown but huge amount of these creatures were flung over the entire physical universe. The Void Lords hoped that some would collide with planets containing world souls. The Old Gods would collide and take root in many planets that did not have world souls though, and their void energies contaminated all that they touched. If the Old Gods landed on a planet with a world soul, their tendrils would bury deep into the earth, envelop it, and then corrupt the soul. This outcome only happened on 2 planets. The Old Gods did not get to complete the process, so as of yet, no Titan has been corrupted. But they came close, which would in turn unleash another monster upon the universe. As the rest of the Pantheon continued their work, preserving the worlds they came across, 2 departed the company of their peers to preserve the worlds in a different way. Some of the demons that resided in the twisting nether had crossed over to the physical universe. They delighted in sowing chaos, either through turning brother against brother or through warfare. Knowing the demons could undo all their hard work, the Pantheon sent Sargeras to fight them. Their finest warrior, the noble-hearted Sargeras, was more than a match for the demons. He travelled to affected worlds and dealt with the demon presence. He was shocked by the sheer depravity of the demons' actions. Entire civilizations were reduced to smouldering husks. As his crusade continued, Sargeras observed the demons using void energy. Through investigating the origins of these powers, Sargeras would discover the existence of the Void Lords, who were spreading their corruption through the universe. Sargeras was deeply troubled by their presence and wondered what the Void Lords could be scheming. Despite this discovery, he continued his crusade against the demons, who had redoubled their efforts. As Sargeras continued to fight, he was dismayed that he began to recognise some of the demons he had already defeated. They had been reborn in the twisting nether, only able to be destroyed in that realm or in an area saturated by that realm's energies. Sargeras did not know this at the time, so he sought to contain the demons. Concerned by the demons' persistence, another titan of the Pantheon was sent to aid their champion, Agramar. While Agramar held his own against the demons, Sargeras studied the twisting nether for a way to contain them. Using the knowledge gleaned from his research, Sargeras would construct the prison of Mardoom, and he and Agramar began the long process of filling it. Soon, Mardoom was so full of demons that their destructive fell energies caused the prison to blaze a sickly green. A light so strong it tore down the barrier between the nether and the physical universe. Mardoom could be observed from the great dark beyond as a far-off, dark, verdant star. Sargeras and Agramar agreed that they would be able to protect more worlds if they split up, only calling on each other in times of desperate need. It was during this time that Sargeras would discover the Void Lord's insidious plan. He was drawn to a far-off corner of the great dark beyond, where he discovered a planet saturated by void energy. Passing his eye over the world, Sargeras saw creatures he had never seen before. Enormous, misshapen mounds of flesh, the old gods, responsible for the veil of void energy that lay over the planet. Upon closer inspection of the saturated world, a cold horror grew within the mighty titan. This planet had a world soul. Sargeras could hear the soul's dreams as it slumbered. Most soul's dreams were joyous, but this world's were hellish nightmares. The old god's tendrils had burrowed deep into the planet's fiery core, and now their void energies were being fed into the world soul. Sargeras discovered a group of demons of the Nathrezim race who were basking in the old god's power and captured one of them. He showed no mercy interrogating the demon, drawing from it what it had learnt of the Void Lords and their creations, the old gods. If the Void Lords succeeded in their aim of corrupting a sleeping titan, the terrible being that arose would have no equal. No power in creation, not even the Pantheon, would be able to stop it. It would consume all existence and deliver everything to the will of the Void Lords. Fear and rage swirled within Sargeras. The captured Nathrezim would be the recipient of his rage. The demon was utterly obliterated by a single swing of the Titan's mighty blade. With sorrow in his heart, Sargeras turned to the infected world, knowing there was only one way to end its corruption. Hoisting his sword above his head, Sargeras brought it down, cleaving the planet in two. The cataclysmic blow engulfed the old gods and their energies, but killed the sleeping titan too. Sargeras called the rest of the Pantheon to recount his tale. Sargeras' peers were concerned with what he and Agramar had discovered about the Void Lords and their plans, but they were far more concerned that Sargeras had murdered one of their own. The Pantheon's champion saw no other way, but the rest of the Titans believed that if Sargeras had just called them, they would have been able to cleanse the world soul of corruption. Sargeras scoffed at the Pantheon's assumptions. They had not seen what the Void was capable of, while he had witnessed it firsthand. As the debates raged, Sargeras expressed his growing concern that existence itself was flawed. Only by burning away all creation could the Pantheon hope to defeat the Void Lords. Sargeras felt a lifeless universe was better than one dominated by the Void. After all, the spark of life was ignited before. It may well ignite again after the cleansing. This view horrified the other Titans, especially Aeonar the Lifebinder, who reminded Sargeras that the Pantheon had sworn to protect living things wherever possible. Nothing could be so dire to warrant systematic mass genocide. Sargeras, in despair that his fellows could not see the necessity of his proposal, stormed away from the rest of the Pantheon. If they would not help him achieve his mission and save his universe from the void, Sargeras would find a way to do it himself. As the rest of the Pantheon discovered and dealt with the second old god-infested world, which I shall discuss very soon, Sargeras meditated on the new mission he had set for himself. He feared the Void Lords had already corrupted other world souls, and this fear consumed him. He became certain that existence was flawed and needed to be purged by fire. To accomplish his burning crusade, Sargeras would need an unstoppable force with a ceaseless rage and lust for destruction. Upon that realization, his eye would turn to Mardum. The Titan tore the prison he had created asunder. The captives spilled from the broken husk, and so too did an explosion of demonic fel energy, which had gathered in the prison over the ages and was far more than Sargeras had expected. The violent energies engulfed the Titan's form, surged through his veins, and consumed his very soul. Sargeras' eyes blazed with emerald fire, and fell eruptions burst forth across his rocky skin. He became a hideous mockery of what he had been before, but his mind remained clear, focused on the mission he had set himself. Mardum's destruction had created a rift between the Nether and the Great Dark. With their confines destroyed and a passage between the realms created, the demons poured forth from their realm into the physical universe. Using his newfound fel energy, Sargeras empowered the demons. Some became larger and more powerful, while some became more cunning. Over time, Sargeras had come to understand demons more, and developed a method to permanently destroy their spirits. He made them an offer: either serve as his new army or be destroyed. Naturally, none stood against him. Sargeras' eventual madness birthed the universe's most terrifying force: the Burning Legion. They would travel from world to world, purging them of life and turning some denizens into demons. With Sargeras gone meditating, the rest of the Pantheon continued with their purpose. Agramar went back to what he had previously been doing with Sargeras, eliminating any signs of demonic influence. During his now lonely journey, travelling from world to world, Agramar would sense something extraordinary: the dreams of a world soul travelling through the Great Dark. Agramar would follow the dreams across the cosmos to their source, and discover a world not yet found by the Pantheon. This world would later come to be known as Azeroth. At Azeroth's core lay a world soul more powerful than any Agramar had previously encountered. The spirit was so mighty, the Titan could even sense its dreams through the din of activity occurring across its surface. As Agramar drew closer to Azeroth, horror seized him. The world was shrouded in the energies of the void. 4 old gods were scattered across Azeroth's surface: Cthulhu, N'Zoth the Corrupter, Yesaraj, Rage Unbound, and Yogg-Saron, Hope's End. The old gods bent Azeroth's elemental spirits to their will, engulfed the world's surface with their black empire, and spawned creatures such as the insectoid Akir and the tentacle-faced Naraki. Miraculously, Azeroth's slumbering spirit remained untouched by the old gods' corruption, but Agramar knew it was only a matter of time before it succumbed to the void. With haste, Agramar sought counsel with the rest of the Pantheon to tell them what he had discovered. Azeroth was proof his brother-in-arms Sargeras had been right about the Void Lord's plans. Agramar urged the other Titans to take action before it was too late. With Aenar championing Agramar's cause, the Pantheon unanimously agreed to try and save the newly discovered World Soul. They would not abandon one of their own to be consumed by the Void. After all, this nascent Titan had the potential to become the most powerful among them, even more so than their old champion Sargeras, and perhaps even become a champion capable of defeating the Void Lords once and for all. Agramar formulated a plan to deal with the Black Empire. Every member of the Pantheon would travel to Azeroth, but they would not deal with the old gods directly. Agramar feared that given the Titans' colossal forms, they could irreparably damage or even inadvertently kill the World Soul. The Pantheon would need to create constructs to enact their will. Under the guidance of Khaz'goroth, the Pantheon would craft an army from Azeroth itself. The Aesir made of metal, who could harness the power of the storms, and the Veneer crafted from stone, who held sway over the earth, would collectively be known as the Titanforged. The Pantheon would imbue several of the Titanforged with their likeness and powers to lead their fellows in the coming war. They would become known as the Keepers, and while over time they would form their own personalities, they would forever bear the marks and abilities of their benefactors. Aman'thul would gift his vast abilities to High Keeper Ra and Keeper Odin. Khaz'goroth imparted his mastery of the earth to Keeper Arcadus. Golganeth gifted mastery of the storms and skies to the Keepers Thorim and Hodir. Keeper Freya was blessed by Aenar, giving her command over Azeroth's flora and fauna. Norgannon gave a portion of his intellect and magical prowess to the Keepers Loken and Mimiron. Finally, Keeper Tyr, who would become the Titanforged's greatest warrior, was instilled with Agramar's strength and courage. The Keepers would lead their fellow Titanforged in a successful campaign against the Black Empire, but losses were heavy, and this war would leave its mark on Azeroth with scars that can still be seen to this day. Taken aback by the Titanforged's initial invasion, the old gods would send their greatest lieutenants to deal with this new threat, the Elemental Lords, Ragnaros, Therazane, Neptulon, and Alakir. The Keepers would handily defeat the Elemental Lords in a matter of weeks, using divide and conquer tactics. They would banish the Lords to a realm crafted by the Keeper Ra and the talented Titanforged sorceress Helya. These four interlinked dominions were known as the Elemental Plane. Ragnaros' smouldering corner was the Firelands, Therazane's hard cold realm was called Deepholm, Neptulon's underwater kingdom the Abyssal Moor, and Alakir's realm in the clouds was Skyreach. The Akir were next, and while the insectoids fought with surprising ferocity, their numbers fell. Too weak to mount a counterattack, the remaining Akir would tunnel deep underground to escape the Keeper's wrath. The greatest battles were yet to come, the Old Gods and their Naraki servants. The first Old God the Titanforged sought to defeat was the mountainous Yeseraj. The Old God was far more formidable than the Titanforged could have ever imagined. Yeseraj's insidious whispers permeated their minds, darkening their thoughts and causing them to languish in their fears. From the cosmos, the Titans watched on, their concern growing as more and more of the Titanforged fell to Yeseraj's might and influence. Fearing the war could be over before it had truly begun, the Titans took action. Despite saying they would try not to, they intervened. Aman'thul's hand cracked open the skies and bore down upon the old god. Plucking the god from the earth, the once terrifying monster merely looked like a parasitic worm within Aman'thul's hand. Yasiraj was torn apart with little effort from the Titan. Aman'thul despaired when he saw the hole left after Yasiraj had been ripped from Azeroth's crust. The tendrils of the old god had dug down far deeper than he could have imagined. An unsightly wound had been ripped into Azeroth's surface. The lifeblood of the sleeping titan, volatile arcane energies, gushed forth from the wound. Energies that spilled out over the entire world. The Pantheon realised that they could not defeat any of the other old gods this way, for the old gods had become so linked to Azeroth that to kill each of them would eventually kill the dormant world soul. Instead, the remaining old gods must be imprisoned, and their dark energies contained. At the Pantheon's behest, the Titanforged began to devise new ways of defeating and imprisoning the other old gods. The monsters would have to be weakened before being placed into vast holding cells. Arcadus would construct giant underground caverns. Mimiron would construct the machinery necessary to contain the old gods, and Loken would imbue each of the prisons with enchantments to neutralize the old god's potent energies. Many more long and arduous battles were fought. They attacked N'Zoth first, then Cthulhu, and finally Yogg-Saron. While losses were high, the Titanforged were eventually able to win out over the nightmarish old gods, sealing them within the bowels of the earth. Against all odds, Azeroth had been saved. The Titanforged then began the process of reshaping Azeroth, removing the blight left behind by the Black Empire. The Keeper's first concern was the disfiguring scar left behind when Aman'thul ripped Yasiraj from the earth. The constant flow of volatile energy, if left unattended, risked the consumption of the entire planet. Labouring day and night, the Keepers constructed several magical wards which they placed around the injury. These would staunch the flow of energy and eventually would calm the injury, settling it into balance. What remained was a vast lake of arcane energy, which the Keepers would call the Well of Eternity. Now, rather than consume the world, the Well of Eternity would infuse it with the sleeping world soul's energies, helping life take root upon Azeroth. Like the Titans had done with previous worlds, the Keepers constructed machinery to help maintain and monitor Azeroth. The Forge of Wills, installed in the north, would help shape Azeroth's budding sentience. It also gave the Keepers the ability to create additional Titanforged. The Forge of Origination would be placed in the southern reaches of the world, regulating the deep rhythms of the earth and fortifying the world's soul's form. Its second purpose was to cleanse Azeroth of life should its denizens be taken by corruption. With the twin forges embedded, the reshaping of Azeroth could begin in earnest. The first Titanforged to be created by the Forge of Wills would aid in this task. One group, the Earthen, crafted mountains and carved the deep places of the world, while another, called the Mechanomes, designed by Keeper Mimiron, would build and maintain the Keeper's machines. A third group, called the Mogu, would dig out Azeroth's rivers and waterways, while the Tol'vir and Varikal would guard the Keeper's holdings. Finally, the Earth Giants and Sea Giants would mould Azeroth's environment, lifting mountain ranges and dredging the vast oceans. As the Titanforged reshaped Azeroth, Keeper Freya set out to populate the world with organic life. She achieved this with the Emerald Dream, a vast, ever-shifting realm of spirits and nature magic. Some believe she crafted it, others believe she discovered it. The Emerald Dream acted as a mirror image of Azeroth. It would help regulate the evolutionary path of Azeroth's flora and fauna. Within this natural paradise, which defied mortal concepts of reality, spirits and otherworldly creatures frolicked. Time and distance were two concepts that held no sway within the dream. A day in the physical realm could feel like a decade in the dream. With the dream crafted, Freya wandered Azeroth, seeking out areas where the Well of Eternity's energies had coalesced. These regions were the optimal areas for Freya to cultivate life, and she would find 3 sites at polar extremes to each other. She seeded and moulded life of astounding varieties within these places. Ungoro Crater, Sholzar Basin, and the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. Among the first and greatest creatures to arise from these hotspots were the Wild Gods, creatures such as Malorn the White Stag and Yulon the Jade Serpent. Freya adored and cared deeply for these creatures, and would often be seen traversing Azeroth with them in tow, life flourishing at their very feet. There was one place that the Wild Gods frequented more than any other: the lush forests atop Mount Hyjal. It was upon the slopes of Hyjal that Freya could connect her beloved Wild Gods to the Emerald Dream. The realm would forever remain a refuge and sacred place to the Wild Gods, whose link with it would make them avatars of the health and vitality of Azeroth itself. As Freya and her children continued their exploration, they came into contact with other strange and new life forms. When the elemental lords and their followers were sealed away, a few straggler elementals remained. Over time, their rage had pacified and they had transformed into creatures of flesh and blood. Most notable of these for our story were the proto-dragons, the second step in the evolutionary chain of dragons. Their tough scaled skin is reinforced by armor plate from the tip of their tail to the end of their snout. While proto-dragons have small diminutive front arms, they have powerful jaws to seize prey, powerful hind legs to allow them to bound across the ground, and of course, impressive wings that let them soar through the sky. The renowned explorer, Ram Bronzebeard, has nearly discovered the exact elemental type that proto-dragons may have descended from: the Stone and Storm Drakes. Given their dragon-like appearance, this ancestry does seem likely, but it is yet to be confirmed by the not-so-talkative elementals of the elemental plane. However, many that now reside there were not present for their Prism Realm's creation. Unlike later evolutions of dragonkind, proto-dragons came in a host of different colours: red, blue, green, bronze, black, violet, blue-green, blue-white, orange, yellow, charcoal grey, dust brown, silver, gold, copper, and silver green, though some are now extinct. Some could breathe lightning, some fire, while others could breathe dust clouds or shards of ice, possibly giving a hint to their elemental ancestry. In time, the Keepers and all the other Titanforged completed their shaping of Azeroth, and the world teemed with life. The Keepers surveyed the land. Twilight settled over Azeroth, with the Well of Eternity placed at its centre, maintaining and cultivating life. The Keepers called the continent Kalimdor, Land of Eternal Starlight. All this time, the Pantheon had been observing their keepers and were deeply satisfied with the way they had cared for Azeroth. Convinced the sleeping world soul was in good hands, the Pantheon prepared to venture back into the Great Dark, continuing their search for other nascent titans. The keepers bid farewell to their creators and crafted the discs of Norgannon in commemoration of their departure. These discs would automatically transcribe Azeroth's history as it unfolded. This way, if the Titans ever returned, they could learn what transpired in their absence. Just before leaving, Aman'thul commissioned the Constellar, Algalon the Observer, to watch over Azeroth. Algalon had the power to activate the Forge of Origination's cleansing device, making sure that the world soul could not fall to the influence of corruption. Now, the scene is set, and important elements to our tale are in place. The Well of Eternity has been created, the Keepers have shaped the world, the Emerald Dream has flourished, and the ever-present evil of the old gods is locked away beneath Azeroth. But our story can truly begin in the frozen north of Kalimdor. On the next episode of the Dragon Saga. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, and you're listening on YouTube, do the good YouTube things. If you're listening on iTunes, give it a review, and if you're listening on Spotify, give me a follow or something. For these special episodes, I won't be doing a Beastry section, so that's it. I'll see you next time for your regularly scheduled Lore of the Cards. Bye bye.